Previously, I'd completed both the collapsed apartment and astral collision areas, leaving just one ritual to perform to reconstruct the nail back at the crossroads. Since I wasn't sure how the final part of the expansion would play out, I decided to head back to the warehouse to see if I could find any more cat statues, since I'd only found one there at the top of the elevator shaft. Re-examining the makeshift lab buildings, I was reminded of an interactive shower I'd seen before. It was all the more suspect now, knowing how these statues are hidden. I quickly ran through pretty much the whole area again. I didn't find much aside from some crystal walls that I could shatter now with the service weapon, but these generally held nothing more than mods and materials that weren't really useful to me anymore. When I returned to the research camp area, I stumbled across a door at the lowest level of the elevator shaft. I remember this door being locked when I was here before. If it was, I'm not sure what unlocked it, but this time I was able to head right in. Inside, I find the final ID card of the 5 that Pope wanted, and a small puzzle that required placing the correct Foundation Expedition member's ID card in the machine next to their desk. This turned out to be pretty straightforward to do by looking at each person's occupation on the ID and the items and equipment around each desk. This allowed me to access a basement lab that housed some information to take back to Pope, as well as a really gnarly boss fight with one of the expedition members that had been transformed into a His Distorted, with a unique laser beam attack. I also found an interactive valve. Again, activating it didn't seem to do anything. I should have realized the significance sooner, but after returning again to the base camp to head back to Crossroads and drop the recovered research information with Pope, it occurred to me that the valve was attached to a pipe. So I went back to try the shower again. Sure enough, the shower now activated and a cat statue appeared behind me, making 5 total collected. Feeling somewhat confident I'd fully explored all the areas I'd been to, I headed toward Research Site Gamma, the final mission target, back where I'd first entered the Foundation. I hadn't visited this pathway since I'd obtained either of the 2 crystal manipulation abilities, so I quickly found a path I couldn't access before. This led me to an area called the Chasm. This looked to be another side area targeting an altered item, this time a videotape that when played seemed to transfix anyone watching it. The video was of Ati, mopping a floor or something, and through the notes in this area it became clear that Ati was referred to by the Bureau as Entity A001. The significance of this wasn't wholly clear, but Ati has been an important character from the start and has always seemed to know more about what's going on than he reveals. Like the movie camera sequence, this proved to be another unique area. Pretty scary, actually. After descending into near complete darkness, I was startled by a level 15 enemy. Fortunately, it appeared transfixed by the item, and I got the impression I should try to sneak through this area, carrying the TV with me for light and defense, as opposed to trying to fight these enemies I thought might be nearly impossible to kill. This went well until I was nearing the end of the area and I ran into some more elevated. These guys didn't care about the powers of the TV at all, and immediately killed me. I'm not sure if they were immune to the effects or if I just messed up somehow, but I didn't relish repeating this walk again. Once I made it back, I made sure to take them out from a distance. Launch was about the only thing that did reasonable damage to them, but I found I was able to finish them off fairly easily despite their high level. The path led me back around to where I'd entered the chasm. I contained the altered item, and continued on to Research Site Gamma. There was another crystal wall here that I'd totally forgotten about. This led me to the Deep Cavern area and the final ritual. The path was fairly short and uneventful compared to the other areas. You can access a higher entrance to the cave bleed here, but I didn't find a whole lot aside from a chest. After teleporting to the astral plane one last time and repairing the device, the plane started to collapse around me and I had to hurry out. With the nail repaired, a hole had appeared in front of it. Sensing this to likely be the final act of this area, I took a detour again to seek out more cats. I spent a lot of time on this search, truth be told, with little result. I first returned to the chasm since I'd been distracted by survival when I first came through there, so I figured I could have easily overlooked something. With the altered tape contained, it was clear I wouldn't have the TV to light the way for me. but I found a little lamp in the area I hadn't noticed before that I could carry. I continued searching beyond this. In another cavern soon after, where there had been a fight on my first trip through, the fight had distracted me from searching all the walls. There was a small hole with some loose rocks to break through, and this sure enough turned out to house a cat. This would be the only remaining statue I'd be able to find on my own, and bring my total to 6. Since the doors back at the fire break still didn't fully open with 6 statues, I kept looking, but wasn't having any luck finding more after quite a while. With limited overall time to play, I decided I needed to either leave this unsolved or just look up the details. I may go read about this puzzle in the future and see what I missed, but for now I just decided to move on. The journey is often more engaging than the goal or reward, so leaving this a mystery, having enjoyed it so much so far, seemed appropriate. Dropping down the hole in front of the nail, sure enough there was really only the final fight left. A transformed Marshall was waiting for me in a sizable cavern with crystal formations to use in the fight. Marshall was transformed into something like a hiss sharpened. The first half of the fight was very straightforward, but things quickly intensified as more enemies were thrown at me. The sharpened enemies in general were very dangerous because of their speed, damage, ability to dodge and teleport. Again, it's easiest to lure them into the environmental traps, but that's often easier said than done, especially when long-range snipers were appearing at the edges of the area. I think I had to try this fight just a couple times, but I definitely didn't make very good use of the more protected alcove areas connected to the main cavern that probably would have provided a safer place to take care of the melee enemies away from the long-range gunfire. Aside from the enemies you seize, there are also other friendlies that come into the fight to help out. I assume these were coming from the board or former, but it wasn't exactly clear. Either way, it's more evidence that these entities are closely related to the hiss if they can control people in the same way. The story wrapped up with the nail cleansed and the board happy, though they also seem to scold Jessie for not doing things their way. Jessie clearly distrusts the board at this point, and rightly so, but keeps that to herself. The nail seems to be or represent the board's connection to the oldest house. Marshall destroyed it originally because the hiss were threatening to take it over. Then Marshall was injured and succumbed to the hiss herself. When I emerged back at the crossroads, a shadowy form could be seen in the distance, amid the endless columns of the foundation. I also emerged from a wall at the crossroads edge that had always looked suspect, so that mystery at least was finally explained. Lots of other questions remain, such as who or what is former, or the board for that matter. What do the hiss or any of these factions want? What does the future hold for Jessie if she is bound to being director and to the service weapon? I had a lot of fun with Foundation, despite the somewhat grueling combat that I just don't think really benefited from being quite as stressful as it was. There was a bit of extra character and story development, a neat new area to explore, and some cool mysteries, puzzles, and altered items. I'll be moving straight on to the AWE expansion to wrap up this whole adventure. I think it's time, but I'm also especially excited to see how much more connection to Alan Wake there is in AWE. As always, thanks so much for checking out the video, and until next time, take care.